Hello friends, a very good day to you. In previous videos, we have talked about the causes for the revolt of 1857. Now today, let us also analyze the course of the revolt of 1857, and while analyzing the course of the revolt of 1857, we should always talk about the important epicenters of the revolt and also the leaders in those important centers. Okay, so today's video 1857 course, okay, how it proceeded and what were the important epicenters and the leaders involved. Okay, so as we all know, the revolt of 1857 begins with the mutiny of the Meerut contingent, the sepoys stationed in Meerut. All right, and they mutiny on the day of 10th May. All right, on the day of 10th May, they refuse to use the greased cartridges and they kill their own commanding officers, and then on the night of 10th May, they proceed to the imperial capital, and that is Delhi, Shahjahanabad, and they proceed there, and by 11th morning they reach Delhi, and when they reach Delhi, they assemble themselves below the walls of the fort of Delhi, and they ask for an interview with Bahadur Shah Jafar. The interview is granted, and although reluctant, Bahadur Shah Jafar assumes leadership over the rebels. Okay, and together the rebels kill Mr. Simon Fraser, who is the political agent of Delhi, the British political agent of Delhi. Together they kill Simon Fraser and also the lieutenant who is guarding the magazine. The magazine is the armory, okay, guarding the magazine near Kashmiri Gate. All right, they also kill the lieutenant who is guarding the magazine and also kill the imperial guard stationed by the British, and then they occupy Delhi. And after the occupation of Delhi, Bakht Khan arrives. Bakht Khan, who is also the leader of the troops of Bareilly, he arrives and takes control or takes charge of Delhi, okay, and the administration of Delhi. They even try to set up an administrative structure within Delhi to govern the city of Delhi. So we see the establishment of a court. And this court, some scholars remark that it was in a democratic setup, and there was also a constitution written down for this court. And in this court, there were there was a totality of 10 members, 6 of them military, and 4 of them you say from civilian side. Okay, and together they tried to establish an administration in the city of Delhi, and this court was headed by the Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar. All right, and also there were the municipality was functioning quite smoothly during the rebel occupation of Delhi. There were publications of newspapers during the rebel occupation of Delhi, and there were also some efforts made to improve the police administration of Delhi. Okay, so the Kotwali of Delhi was also functioning quite smoothly during the occupation of Delhi, and all of this was conducted under the leadership of Mr. Bakht Khan. So this is about Delhi. Now let us move out of Delhi and let us look at the other centers also. An important center, of course, everybody knows, is Awad. And in Awad, or you will find this spelling in British sources, Oud. In Awad or Oud, the mother of the deposed Nawab of Oud, okay, the deposed ruler of Oud or Awad, Begum Hazrat Mahal. She takes control of the administration of Awad after the expulsion of the British from Awad, okay, and she takes control of the administration in the name of her son Birjis Kadir. And what of the British residents and what of the European residents in Awad? They take shelter in the residency at Lucknow, okay, and this building is under continuous siege from then on, and the defense of the residency of Awad is being conducted under Henry Lawrence, okay, one of the officers, the residents of Awad, the chief political resident of Awad, Henry Lawrence, conducts the defense of the the building, which is the residency building, okay, and outside, commanders of the British commanders from outside Awad, they try to take control of the residency. They try to relieve the siege of the residency by, Indian sepoys, but they constantly fail. Among them, Havelock and Outram. Havelock and Outram, they constantly try to relieve the siege of the residency, but they are unsuccessful. But finally, Colin Campbell is able to relieve the residency. Now, Colin Campbell arrives in Awad from Kanpur. Now, when we have arrived at Kanpur, let us talk about Kanpur and the important leader of Kanpur. The Kanpur rebellion is being led by Nana Sahib. Now, he is the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II and who has been chased out of Pune, who has been refused his royal title, okay, and he had been resident in Kanpur. And once the revolt, the mutiny breaks out, he takes control of the of the Kanpur area. He expels the British out of the Kanpur area, but Colin Campbell relieves Kanpur and takes control of Kanpur from Nana Sahib. Nana Sahib, flees from Kanpur and he goes away to Nepal. And it is quite controversial because nothing is known about Nana Sahib after his escape from Kanpur, and after he reaches Nepal there is not much information about Nana Sahib. Nobody knows what exactly happened to him. Even Begum Hazrat Mahal, after the siege of after the relief of the residency of Kanpur, after the relief of the residency of Lucknow, and after the capture of Awad in March of 1858, even Begum Hazrat Mahal, she travels to Nepal and she lives in Nepal after Awad is taken over by the British. So we have talked about Awad and we have also talked about Kanpur. Let us talk about Jhansi. Jhansi at this point of time, during the revolt in Jhansi was led by, as we all know, Rani Lakshmi Bai, who is the widow of Gangadhar Rao, and her grievance with the British empire is that of the doctrine of lapse, because Dalhousie, through the doctrine of lapse, had taken away Jhansi from her, because Gangadhar Rao and Rani Lakshmi Bai, they did not have their own son but had an adopted son who was refused the title of kingship, and therefore Rani Lakshmi Bai led the troops in Jhansi, and it is sad to say that Rani Lakshmi Bai died defending Jhansi, okay, and after her defeat Jhansi was also overtaken by the British. Now, what about Delhi? We have talked about the retaking of Awad, we have talked about the retaking of Kanpur, we have talked about the retaking of Jhansi, but what about the retaking of Delhi? Delhi was retaken by John Nicholson. Okay, one of the ruthless British commanders, John Nicholson. He was well known for his ruthlessness, and he was instrumental in the retaking of Delhi, and he was also instrumental in the entire offensive on Delhi, which was being led, it is said, which was being led from the Ridge area of Delhi, and then it proceeds towards Kashmiri Gate, and from Kashmiri Gate then on into the city of Delhi. He is an instrumental officer when it comes to the retaking of Delhi, and he also died during his efforts to retake Delhi. He was shot at and he received a fatal wound, and because of this wound he died, and it was finally completed by Lieutenant Hudson, who is infamous because he is known to have killed off the entire progeny of Bahadur Shah Zafar even before they were, they got captured and they were being taken to the fort in Delhi, and even before they reached the fort in Delhi, Lieutenant Hudson, he one by one he executed all of the progeny of Bahadur Shah Zafar. After the taking of Delhi itself, Bahadur Shah Zafar was put on trial by the British for the crime of treason. All right, it is a conundrum. Many scholars have written about it, because the British were themselves ruling under farmans from the Mughals. So how can the ruler himself, okay, the supreme authority in India itself, can be tried for treason in the name of the authority of the crown, in the name of the authority of the British Queen, okay? But so far as historical trends are concerned and so far as historical events are concerned, Bahadur Shah Zafar is exiled to Burma, okay, and there he lives in total isolation, and it is said that Bahadur Shah Zafar dies in Burma and he is buried now in an unmarked grave, okay, he was buried in an unmarked grave. So there was a concerted effort on the part of the British to extinguish the entire you see, the entire base of the Mughal Empire in India by, even secluding Bahadur Shah Zafar in such a way that people forget about the Mughal Empire in India. And also, evidences are there about wide-scale destruction of monuments in and around the fort in Delhi, so as to, remove any sign of the rebellion in Delhi, and also remove any sign of the Mughal Empire which was centered in Delhi. Okay, this was a concerted effort that was made. So, apart from these particular leaders and these particular epicenters of the revolt, there are other leaders too, leaders of the zamindari classes. Now, as in the, during the discussion about the course of the revolt of 1857, we talked about the popular grievances. In fact, many scholars, almost all of them today, unanimously agree that it was not merely a mutiny. It was not, you cannot even call it merely as a revolt. You cannot call it a civil rebellion. It was and has had, a form which is unique to itself, okay, because after the mutiny, even the entire populace of certain areas, the entire populace of the Doab region, the, the Awad region, the region in you see Bundelkhand, entire populace rises against British occupation of India, and it is said that in these areas British British Empire was completely extinguished for a particular period of time, during which the rebels occupied these areas. Okay, so having said that, we have to also analyze the popular nature of this revolt. And when we are analyzing the popular nature of the revolt, and when we look at popular leaders of the revolt, we see that zamindari elements are very important while understanding the popular nature of the revolt. Now, because of the settlement policies and also the perception of the British towards the zamindari classes, there was pent up grievances among the zamindari classes, and also their subjects, the subjects of the zamindari classes, the rural populace. Okay, there were pent up grievances among them. Okay, and therefore when the revolt breaks out, the zamindari classes provide a strong leadership to the rural masses, who also rise up in revolt. In the Bihar region, it is very pertinent to talk about Kanwar Singh, because Kanwar Singh, although of a ripe old age of, it is said that he was beyond his 70s, it is known that Kanwar Singh offered some of the steepest resistances against the British during the revolt of 1857. Apart from the zamindari element, there are also evidences of the religious classes leading popular revolt. Okay, among them Maulvi Ahmadullah of Faizabad is important, okay, because he is also known to provide stiff resistance against the British during the revolt of 1857. So, having talked about the various epicenters of the revolt of 1857, having talked about the various leaders of the revolt of 1857, all right, and their epicenters, now as far as Maulvi Ahmadullah is concerned, this is the place of leadership. When you are asked MCQ questions, Faizabad will be the answer of Maulvi Ahmadullah's center of revolt. Okay, so as far as the revolt is concerned, we have talked about the various epicenters. We have also talked about the leadership and also the British leadership who were instrumental in taking over this particular centers. Okay, so by 1858, by the end of 1858, we see British authority is restored again in India, and then the British embark upon a sea change of political and administrative reforms, okay, in order to establish themselves more solidly, have a more solid base within India, and also to redress some of the elements which they think might have been causative as far as 1857 is concerned. Okay, the British policy of divide and rule, the British policies towards the princely states, and also the British policies towards the zamindari classes, they all changed. British organizational policy regarding the army, it is also seen that after 1858 they change, and the Queen's Proclamation of the Government of India Act, which you will also have the opportunity to observe in another video, will talk about the sea changes that come about after the revolt of 1857. So I hope that the course of the revolt of 1857 is quite clear to you, and I hope that you will be studying hard and do well. Thank you.